Today's show is all about the NFL trade deadline, and I'm going to do my best at predicting who stays and who gets traded. This is not what I would do if I was one of these two gentlemen here. It's me predicting what I think they are going to do come Tuesday, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, October 31st, when the NFL trade deadline hits. So, with that being said, let's meet the primary 6 candidates that I think ultimately have a good chance or a possible chance of getting dealt. Jeudy and Courtland Sutton by far are the 2 most popular names on this list. There's been a lot of buzz about these guys for months at this point. There's a very real chance one of these 2 players plays their last game as a Denver Bronco this Sunday against Kansas City. Left tackle Garrett Bolles has also garnered some interest, along with Josey Jewell. Pat Surtain, I have gone at length about, but he is unfortunately on this list as a possible candidate. And then a fan favorite, Justin Simmons, also could get dealt before Tuesday's trade deadline. So with that being said, let's go one by one. Starting with Jeudy, I think he's going. I think he would not be on the Broncos roster after Tuesday's trade deadline. I'm predicting a trade. To me, it's just clear that Jeudy is not on a path to get a second contract with the Broncos. They picked up his 5th-year option, so some other team will pay that $12.9 million fully guaranteed contract. But I don't think his value is going to get any higher. Because right now, it's not very high to begin with. Like, you look at what he's done so far this season compared to his first 3 years, he's off to a very slow start. Now, he's put up over 50 yards in 4 out of 6 games thus far, but that's a pretty low bar. Like, we're bragging about a guy who's gone over 50 yards. Like, for a first-round pick, 15th overall, it should be a lot higher of a number. So, I don't know if you're going to get a better offer in January or if you're going to get a better offer in March. So if you don't think he's going to be here long term, this is probably his highest value. Maybe he has a breakout second half of the year and you hold on to him and you're happy you never traded him. But if you don't see a path for Jeudy coming back after his rookie contract, I say sell high. Now, where could he go? What about the Carolina Panthers? There's been a lot of talk about Carolina looking for a wide receiver. Jeudy went on Instagram and pretty much followed the entire Panthers offense on Instagram. So 2 third-round picks. I was hoping for a second. Denver wanted a first back during the draft. They never got it. Maybe now they kick themselves for not taking a second when they had the chance. But a 2024 and 2025 third-round pick for Jeudy, you walk away with 2 decent day 2 draft picks, and you just kind of turn the page on the Jeudy era in Denver, which ultimately will be a lot of potential, good flashes at times, that hat trick against the Chiefs last year at home, but ultimately never looked like a guy that could be a franchise wide receiver. Second guy on the docket. What about Courtland Sutton? I think he's staying, actually. Again, these are my predictions, not what I would do. If I was calling the shots, I'd probably trade both these players and get as many picks as possible to maximize your rebuild. But Sutton has had an awesome resurgence. He's up to 5 touchdowns already. He had 4 total over the last 2 seasons combined. But I don't think Sean Payton wants to make life any more difficult for himself. And right now, the only good thing they have going in the passing department is Courtland Sutton in the red zone. Take that away, and it's going to get a lot tougher for Russell Wilson. And Sean Payton isn't on the hot seat because he's not going anywhere after their season no matter what, but he definitely doesn't want to have a big stinker of a first season. And Courtland Sutton is a good eraser of that potential stinker mark and trying to salvage the second half of that season. And Sean Payton is most likely calling the shots at the trade deadline. So it's already bleak on offense. Taking Russ's top target away just doesn't seem like a move Sean Payton will be interested in doing. When you look at Courtland Sutton's numbers over the last 4 seasons, ever since that ACL tear in 2020, it's been tough sledding, right? Like I mentioned, 4 total touchdowns in the previous 2 years combined. But he's definitely gotten off to a hot start this year. It's looking like it's going to be the best season since 2019 when he went over 1,000 yards and he had 6 touchdowns. So you look at the direction he's going. Denver likely wants to keep Russell Wilson intact at least as long as he's on this roster. And he's going to be on this roster, I think, for the rest of this year and all of next year. So maybe keep his number 1 target with him. Now, if you had to pick one guy to keep, who would that be? Jeudy or Courtland Sutton? Who do you want Denver to hold on to and make sure they are still on this roster after Tuesday's trade deadline. Type 10 for Jeudy or 14 for Courtland Sutton. I want to know who you have to pick in the comment section. Moving on to my third trade candidate, Garrett Bolles. I think he's staying. There was a lot of buzz and some deep rumors and whispers back in March and April that Garrett Bolles could be on the trade block. Ultimately, nothing came to fruition, but he's having the second best year, I'll say, of his NFL career. He had that phenomenal 2020 season, and after a lot of penalties to start his career, but he's had a really good season coming off a broken freaking leg last year, and left tackle is just a cornerstone piece. When you think about a rebuild, you move assets that are easy, or you move players that are easily replaceable, right? Wide receivers, linebackers, DBs, like safeties. You don't move left tackles, quarterbacks, and cornerbacks. Those are foundation pieces. Those are positions that go top 10 in the draft more than any other position for a reason. They're hard to come by. Denver's got a good left tackle. Is he worth the big contract? Probably not to the exact dollar, but a lot of guys aren't worth their contract to the exact dollar. So I don't think if Denver wants to rebuild, a good spot is taking away a cornerstone piece just to try and replace that guy with a draft pick who might not be as good as Garrett Bolles. When you look at his PFF grades this year, he's a top 25 tackle out of 74 qualifying players, an overall grade of 72 on the dot, which it's not fantastic, but it's good. It's more than just serviceable. It's going to keep your quarterback upright. Only 3 penalties, which for Garrett Bolles standards feels pretty low. 1 sack allowed and 10 pressures. So Garrett Bolles is having a really nice year. I'm sure there's going to be teams that have interest in him, and Denver could probably get a good draft pick. But if they get that second rounder for Garrett Bolles, they're going to spend it on a left tackle. And there's a good chance that guy will just not be as good as Bolles. And so what really did you gain other than a cheaper contract and a worse left tackle? Before we get to the rest of the trade candidates, today's show is being sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy sports app where all you have to do is pick more or less for 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. Prize Picks is super simple and user-friendly. I spend a few minutes on the app every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, making my selections. And for this upcoming slate of games on Sunday, I'm taking the more on C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence at 239.5 passing yards. And I'm also going to dabble in the more for Breece Hall. Life's too short to take the less. So 66.5 rushing yards against the G-men. I like the more on all 3 of those. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. The link for that, by the way, is in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Moving on to the 4th trade candidate. What about Josey Jewell? I think he's going. I think Jewell's days in Denver are coming to an end, and after this game against the Chiefs, he will be packing his bags and playing somewhere else the rest of the way. Why? He's in the final year of his contract, so that makes it easier for Denver to move and easier for another team to trade for because they don't have to worry about paying him the rest of his contract for another 2 to 3 seasons. That's reason number 1. Reason number 2, Denver drafted his replacement. When they extended and re-signed Alex Singleton to a 3-year contract and used one of their first draft picks on an inside linebacker, well, it wasn't to replace Alex Singleton. They just gave him a lot of money in free agency. It was to replace Josey Jewell on the last year of his contract. So if Jewell is gone no matter what, you might as well get a draft pick for the guy because you're not going to the playoffs anyway this season. He's also got a pretty good value. He's coming off a season-high 10 tackles last week against the Packers. He missed a little bit of time earlier this year with an injury, but he is back, he is healthy, and he is ready to help out a team looking to go on a run. Now, who could that team be? What about the Buffalo Bills? They lost their star linebacker, Matt Milano, with an injury a few weeks ago, so Jewell could come in and he could plug in and be ready to roll for the rest of the season. Denver gets a 5th-round draft pick for a player they plan on letting walk after the season is over. Drew Sanders gets some valuable snaps, kind of get him up to speed. That way, when he starts next season, he's not a fish out of water. He's got half a season of starting experience under his belt. So for me, this is a win-win deal on both sides. Pat Surtain. He stays or I quit. I quit. I will quit my job as the Broncos Breakdown host if Patrick Surtain II, son of Patrick Surtain I, gets traded before Tuesday's 4 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Mountain NFL trade deadline. We riot. We fucking riot. If Patrick Surtain II gets traded, we riot. I'm talking full blown. I'm talking targets are going to close and they're not going to come back. If Pat Surtain gets traded, we riot. What you do not do in a rebuild is trade away your 23-year-old all-pro cornerback. It makes no sense. I understand that people think if you're rebuilding, you should try and get as many picks as possible. But you know what you don't do? Trade away proven commodities like Pat Surtain that are 23 years old. It's one thing if Patrick Surtain is an all-pro corner, but he's 28, 29 years old, kind of like Von Miller at the end of his career, right? That couldn't be further from the case. Imagine trading Von Miller in the second, third year of his NFL career. We would look back as the world's biggest idiots to see what he would do the rest of the way. You hold on to Pat Surtain. You trade other guys, and you take those picks, and you build a new team around Patrick Surtain. You've got a flagpole. It's number 2. Hold on to him. They're going to hold on to him. I'm 99% sure. But if that 1% does happen, we riot. So if you want Pat Surtain to stay in the Mile High City, show the guy some love. Make sure George and Sean Payton see a bazillion PS2s in the chat right now because I don't want them to even entertain the idea of trading PS2 away. 6th and final trade candidate we looked at today, Justin Simmons. I think he's staying. At one point, I thought he might get traded. In fact, my prediction was he gets traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, who did trade for a safety, just another safety. So with that being said, I think Justin Simmons ultimately will stay in the Mile High City. Now, Simmons turns 30 years old in December, so that's different than Pat Surtain, right? He's towards the end of his career compared to the start of his career. He's got 1 year left on his contract beyond 2023. Very little of that money is guaranteed. So a team could trade for him, and they could release him after the season and not have to pay a lot of dead money. Now, the Titans, like I said, they traded Kevin Byard to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 2024 5th and 6th rounder along with safety Terrell Edmunds. So if there was a Justin Simmons trade destination, it was Philadelphia in my eyes. And now that they got a new safety from Tennessee, I think Simmons ultimately stays put, right? I just don't think that Denver is going to get a good enough offer for Justin Simmons to hold on to him. So I think that he is staying in Denver, and we're not going to see him get traded because if Tennessee just got a 5th and a 6th rounder, then I don't think you're going to see Denver get a whole lot more, and they're not interested in trading him away for absolutely nothing. Now, predict it for me in the comment section. Who gets traded? We looked at 6 guys today that have been the most talked about in trade circles, conversations, players on Denver's roster. Of those 6 guys or someone else, who do you ultimately think gets traded? That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come hang out with us here at the Broncos Breakdown. We're going to sign off, and we're going to see you all later.